Hey everybody, welcome to Houston. We have a problem. Livecast 31. Crazy. The spy is, when I wrote the description, the spy had taken a hit, bounced back, but now it's going right back down again. The Fed said they're going to be tapering, which means they're going to be like tightening credit a little bit. I think that might finally start getting people talking about other things like the debt ceiling. We have a lot of spending that needs to happen as a government, and if we tighten if we limit the debt ceiling, then not only does that stuff not happen, but we also run into the issue of defaulting on our debt. And if we default on our debt, the entire market just takes a dump. Sorry, I gotta close my door 1 second. Keep forgetting to do that. There we go. So we might see the dip in the market that we've been expecting. It might be starting to happen right now, especially if the SPY is getting hit hard like we're seeing at this very moment. That's all the big news I have for you. Other than institutions. Institutions are buying into meme stocks like crazy right now. And this is resulting in holdings going through the roof for these big institutions. They spent billions buying up AMC and GME and others. It was revealed that Bank of America had purchased like 200,000 shares. A bunch of hedge funds and other banks have dipped into the pool. And it's probably a good sign for us because, think about it. If you're Bank of America, you've lent margin to a bunch of hedge funds. And these hedge funds have shorted these meme stocks like crazy. And you're looking at the books going, oh crap, what do we do? And the response is hedge your bet, buy the opposite. Because if these meme stocks go through the roof and you are held liable to cover all this stuff, you may as well have some of those meme stocks in your back pocket to counteract whatever losses you may have as a result of all these hedge funds. So it's probably a good sign that these banks and institutions are starting to invest bigly into these hedge funds or into these meme stocks. So that's some interesting news happening there. Nick Callis super chats. There are two meta stocks. They sell for 3 and 17. Can you tell me what is what? Huh? There are two of them? That's weird. MMAT should be metamaterial. I don't know what the other one would be. Metamaterial should be the only stock or MMAT should be the only stock for metamaterial, MMAT. I don't know what the other one would be at all. So I don't know. Let's see here. I forgot to see if my, all right, let's go scene. We click on, take off the Google Earth, blink, click on the Chrome. Oh yeah, I forgot to sign the Chrome. Where are you? My streaming. Oh no, where's my, okay. Let's go there. Let's see if that one works. Sorry, 1 sec. Technical difficulties as per usual. Okay, this is what I want. Done. And no, you didn't turn on. What the? Oh, there it is. Okay, we got it now. Whew, it's back. All right. So, MMAT. I've got metamaterials trading at 301. It bounced really low, went below $3 last night. 284 early this morning. Oof. I don't know if there's another. Maybe there's a meta? Nope. There's no meta. So I don't know what other stock you're talking about that's trading at 17. I'm sorry. Can't help you on that one. Maybe if you can give me a stock ticker, I can investigate that a little more. Oh no, stop. Sorry. That intro just wants to carry when I switch screens. Sorry about that. Oops. Sigh. Josh Pet Pals, Tennessee. Happy birthday. We just keep saying it every day. We won't miss it. Logic. Also, Nerd M-Class Planets. Is this a real rating system? What's the actual system, and how do we know if others exist? We basically call them Earth-like planets, rocky planets that are close to the sun. I'm sure there's a category. I don't remember ever really going over this. Categorizing extrasolar planets. They may have officially done something by now. Yes, so they actually do have an actual planetary classification. So the M-class planet is a thing. So I think they adopted it from sci-fi. So, all right, we go back to you. There we go. So planet classification. We have, whoops, come on, load up. Okay, so we've got M class, which is us, terrestrial planets. L and K class are sort of like us. N is sulfuric, so that'd probably be like Venus. Venus would be a sulfuric planet because it's full of sulfuric acid. Gas giants, planetoid or moons would be Ds, so things that have no atmosphere and probably are small. Rogue planets, not as habitable as terrestrial planets. T is also a gas giant. Which gas giant that would be? And then Y is toxic atmosphere, high. Oh no, Y is probably Venus, toxic atmosphere and high temperatures. Yeah. So, space.com, lay off. Yeah. So sorry, this is from the Star Trek fan site. So it is. I don't think it's an official thing, but you know, minor planets, terrestrial planets, gas giants. All right. Yeah, we never really actually talked about categorizing planets beyond like rocky and gas giant in my grad programs. So I mean, we call it Goldilocks zone. That's when a planet is in the habitable zone, where it's not too hot and not too cold, where water can exist in 3 different states, and that's kind of where certain planets need to be. And then certain planets are just so big that life probably can't exist because it would just squish them into nothing. And Jupiter, you set foot in Jupiter, you're going to sink through the atmosphere until you get to a point where it just crushes you into something about a centimeter across. So I wouldn't worry too much about trying to survive in Jupiter. We're looking at, 3 million pounds per square inch when you get to liquid metallic hydrogen, which all of a sudden hydrogen, which should weigh, fractions of a gram per cubic centimeter, all of a sudden like as heavy as rocks are here on Earth. Weird things can happen. Okay, let's see here. Let's see what Nil21981 says. He heard that they can't close out the old CUSIP of metamaterial until they file the auditor's report of the merger, which they filed yesterday. Oh, yeah, there was a thing someone linked me to showing that they had 71 days from when they did the merger to when they actually do the filing to make everything official. So we are probably looking at maybe now they're going to start doing stuff with metamaterial. These things are stuff I never really had to pay attention to. So looking at that filing getting done is probably a good thing. Just sit and wait. That's all we can do. I picked up some more shares while it dipped, and I'm sitting and waiting. Joshua Niadow, hope I say that right. He super chats, with a 2% dip between today and yesterday in the market, do you think that is enough to start margin calls? If not, how far does it need to dip? If yes, how long until we see the results of our stocks? Thank you for all you do. I think it needs to go further. The last time we got into this weird precarious precipice of the debt ceiling, SPY and SPX, they all dropped like 20%. That dropping a fifth in total value for these assets that are under management for the hedge funds is a big drop. So that if you already get margined at like 30 times your assets and your assets drop 20%, then that makes you now like 45 times, 40 times ish, your total ratio between assets and margin. And those are the things that can really start to trip up hedge funds. And also, it also means the banks are having capital trouble, because remember, they've done $1.1 trillion in these reverse repos. So they've given $1.1 trillion in cash to the Fed. The Fed has given them their treasury bonds. And if those treasury bonds all of a sudden take a big hit in value because, we get our credit downgraded or we default, then those banks lose well, they won't lose all their capital, but they'll lose a significant portion of that capital all of a sudden. And that can create a lot of trouble. So, we're kind of sitting and watching the show at this point. The best advice I can give, and it's not financial advice because I'm not a financial advisor, is I look at my investment in these the meme stocks as an entertainment expense. Like, I put money in that, and now I'm going to see what happens. And that's kind of how I treat it. Again, like, I took money that was my vacation fund that I normally spend going somewhere every year. And because of COVID, I couldn't do that. So I took that money and I bought GameStop with it. And it's made me a good chunk of cash so far and has provided more entertainment, bang for the buck, than I probably have ever had in my entire life. I mean, heck, I'm sitting here right now with 300 of you on a YouTube live stream, all because of it. It's the weirdest trip I've ever gone on. So, yeah, that's the way I treat this sucker. Christopher Sawchuk, Super Chats. TD Ameritrade sent me an email last night saying they're restricting certain securities starting September 3rd. I think this refers to Sears Holding. Yes, I believe that does refer to Sears Holding, that they're going to turn off the buy button for Sears Holding. So you have to have, if you want to play with Sears, you have to have it in your account by September 3rd. And they will only let you sell after that. You cannot buy anymore. So I have all the shares of it in my account I can get. And I'm holding out for that, that moment where the bankruptcy judge forces them to sell assets and then pay out dividends. And, Get It Got on Reddit. He's the guy to follow for Sears Holding news. He seems to have his nose to the ground and picks up anything that has to do with Sears. I figure, at 15 cents a share, why not? If every share can be worth $17 at some point, that seems like a pretty good upside. And if I lose out on 15 cents a share, oh well. I'm right back where I started, basically. Okay. I had normally the DMs I get from everybody are people asking questions. They ask lots of questions. I try to answer them when I can. And only every once in a while do I get one of someone being really mean. But I had a guy DM me last night saying I'm really fat. And that would be my favorite DM of all time. You're fat. I'm a fat piece of shit. No one in my entire life has ever called me fat, so I'm going to cherish this with all my heart. I love it. Okay. Friendface McRiffhard. Great name. Sup, Houston. Canadian here. Got my Torchlight shares before the dividend deadline, and since the switch to Meta, my broker, Scotia iTrade, has not been able to put a price to my shares. Crazy. Really? So your Meta shares don't have a price on them? That's really weird. Or you're talking about the preferred shares for the dividend, because those ones won't have a price. The Meta shares should have a price. The preferred shares you got from Torchlight will not have a price because they're not tradable. They just sit in your account until Metamaterial is done selling off all those Torchlight assets. And when they do, they're going to take that money and replace those preferred shares with cash. How much that's going to be, I have no idea. But with oil prices going up, it makes the value of all those assets also go up. So it's going to be more than we thought it would be a year ago when they announced this merger, that's for sure. Kyle Cooper Super Chats. Forest Service job and housing ending October 1st. Have any warm weather car camping spots in New Mexico, Arizona, or Nevada? Heading home to Oregon, Pacific Northwest. Ooh, places to go down there. Man, okay. So if you're going to go to Arizona for the winter, I'd recommend going further south. Car camping. If you go in and around like Quartzsite in that area, I mean, there's not much shade, but it's pretty cool. Lots of really cool gulches and rocks to go look at. That's stuff I care about. New Mexico, Silver City's pretty awesome. Although it's a little bit higher elevation, so it can get a little more, can get chilly at times. White Sands area is really cool. Man, what else would be good places to go for wintertime down there? Nevada gets pretty miserable in the winter. People don't quite realize that Nevada is, a lot of Nevada is very high and very mountainous, and in the wintertime can be just a pain. So if you're going to be in Nevada, you're going to want to be further south, near the southern tip of Nevada, like where Las Vegas and Pahrump is, and Amargosa Valley. Those places are much lower altitudes, and they stay warmer throughout the year. But the minute you head further north, all of a sudden you're at 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 feet in elevation, even though you're in these valleys, and it can be pretty cold. The same thing with the high desert in Arizona. Flagstaff gets snowstorms and they have miserable weather. Same thing with like Prescott. Prescott's a cool hippie town. So you want to go south, low elevation. California, Palm Springs. Why do you think everybody hangs out there all winter in Palm Springs? It's a great place to be in the wintertime. Matthew Abner, the RRP banks park money with the Fed for bonds overnight. On New York Stock Exchange website, they showed that there is a 0.05 award. What's the award and who gets it? I don't know enough about that overnight parking. It might be, is that a commission maybe for a bond broker? I don't know. I'll have to put that on the things to learn list. Award 0.05 bonds. Okay, that's on the things to learn list. I don't know, Matthew. I'm not the person who can answer that one yet, but I will look into it. All right. Christopher Sawchuk also asked, Houston, could you briefly explain the meaning of the universe? Okay. This is best as I can tell. The universe does what it does, and most of it's dead, and wants to kill you. In brief little oases like the Earth, there's things known as life. And the definition of life is pretty simple. You eat, you shit, you fuck. That's it. That's life. If you can do those three things, you are a bacteria, you are a mushroom, you are a tree. You consume something, you fart something out after you consume it, and then you procreate and you make more of you. Welcome to life. Human beings are always trying to dive deeper into what this all means, but really, our lives are just killing time between doing those three things. That's what what being a human being is. So you're killing time between eating your meals, taking dumps, and hopefully making more humans, if you're lucky. And then, that's it. Your progeny then carries on those traditions of eating, pooping, and fornicating. And then their progeny carries on those traditions, and so on, and so on, and so on. Everything else we do is killing time in between those things, learning art, learning philosophy, trading stocks, working on your car, going on vacation. They're all time killers. Little fruit flies don't have that luxury. They basically have to get all three of those things done as fast as possible and make more of them, and then they just croak. And then you got other things like trees that last 6,000 years, and they got more time on their hands, but they don't have thumbs, so they really can't learn a lot of the trades we do. We're just in a happy median. That's the meaning of the universe. Killing time between doing your 3 tasks. Justin Kappa TV. What market capitalization highs peak do you think both AMC and GME would reach during MOAS? Oh, man. They're going to reach records that may never be broken. At least not for another like 500 years of inflation. I think it's very real that for a brief moment, Ryan Cohen could be the world's first trillionaire. Easily. If that stock price breaks $100,000 a share, Ryan Cohen's net worth will be over $1 trillion. It'll be nuts, and it'll be brief. It'll last a day or two, and then he'll be right back down to where he was. But I think the market caps of AMC and GME can get in the trillions during the peak of the squeeze. You're looking at, I wonder if, here we go. I'm going to do something here. Calculator. All right, I can go to add. I can go to window capture. I can click add source. I can do new source. I can do calculator. Oh, wait. I'm on the wrong scene. Sorry, one sec. I mean this one. Okay, turn you off. Add you. Go back to window capture. Go to new source. Warp. This might help things. Okay, then I select that. Boom. Haha. All right. We can now have the calculator. Dun, 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 dun. All right, so we get 73 million shares of GameStop out there. And let's say during the peak, like the absolute peak, it reaches, I don't know, what Rocky Outcrop's saying, like $19 million. So, boom. We're looking at a market cap of hundreds, thousands, millions, billions, trillions, $1.3 quadrillion will be the market cap of GameStop in the moment the share price hits $19 million during the squeeze. Now, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Microsoft, all of these companies, for a brief moment, they will just be in awe of the market cap of GameStop during that. Okay, let's say with the 500 million plus shares of AMC, that even where I think the peak might be is 6 figures with AMC. So we're looking at millions, billions, looking at $50 trillion for AMC. Not bad. Not a bad market cap for a company that does not earn that in a year. So the market cap for these things can be absolutely just insane for these brief moments, and make them just unreasonably massive companies for while that squeeze is going on. Now, it does not mean the company is actually worth this stuff based on their fundamentals. It's all based upon the squeeze price and the infinite risk that's been assumed by these short hedge funds. So, it's going to be absolutely crazy to see, like, you will be able to tell people, like, hey, on paper I was a billionaire at one time, and people are like, whoa, wow, tell me the story. Let's look at how many shares does DFV have? 150,000 shares, something. So Keith Gill's 150,000 shares, which is way more than I have. And at that peak, he's going to be worth, $2 trillion, 2.8 trillion for a brief moment. That wouldn't be so bad for Keith Gill. The thing is that not everybody is going to be able to sell at that peak. So don't think that we are all going to magically sell at $19 million plus dollars. That's numbers like that are in that tippy top triangle of the ultimate squeeze. Not everyone's going to be able to realize that stuff. And I hope as many of you as possible do, but I'm not counting on myself being able to sell all my shares at that price. I might be able to be lucky and sell one of them at that price, or higher, hopefully. We'll see. But there will be a brief moment. The market capitalization for these companies will just be so stupendous that it will outweigh the global economy by hundreds of times, probably. So we are an uncharted, wacky land that really doesn't make any sense for anyone, and that's where we are. Okay, I think I missed a super chat in here. Oh, yep. Cha Kuseki. Super chats. Have you practiced for MOAS by paper trading high volatility stocks like historical short squeezes? Also, what's your favorite Megafauna? Ooh. There is the couple of games that search for them, or put the link in there. There's a couple of flash games that people made for the potential squeeze of GameStop and AMC, and you can practice, setting limit orders and things like that. I've tinkered with them, but I haven't spent too much time. Mostly I just do my Godonkin, my mental experiments, and lay awake at night thinking about those. That's where I get my practice in. My favorite Megafauna. Okay. Favorite Megafauna of alive or extinct? Because if I were to say favorite Megafauna that's alive, African elephants are pretty cool. You can't go wrong with African elephants. But favorite Megafauna that's extinct, giant sloths of South America. I would love to meet a giant sloth. I think they would be the most hilarious things in the entire world. Giant sloths, I've only ever seen one fossil of one, and that was at the Harvard Natural History Museum. And the thing's 8 feet tall and weighs 1,000 pounds. Can you imagine a sloth that big? They basically got hunted to death, probably by humans, and by big scary cats. So 6 million years ago is when Google Earth time. Let's just go to the Google Earth and get that over with. Click on that. Okay, Google Earth. Got to zoom out from Gooseneck State Park where we left off last time. Okay, so we've got this big, long, trailing tail of North America that is Central America, and this little point where Panama connects to South America. All right, so from when this little tail finally connected with South America, the animals that were in South America were mostly descendants of marsupials, kind of like Australia. You had lots of marsupials, a lot of marsupial predators. The placental mammals that were there weren't quite terrifying like the placental mammals that were in North America. Here were lots of big scary cats and bears and wolves and things like that. So 6 million years ago, North America finally connected with South America. They finally touched, and a whole bunch of scary predators flooded into South America and just started slaughtering slow megafauna. And your jaguars and panthers and mountain lions, they just had a feast, and they devoured everything. And there's the humans here also did lots of hunting as well. But and the marsupial predators that were in South America did not stand a chance against the placental predators. Tasmanian devil in Tasmania, yeah, it's a tough predator. The Tasmanian tiger was a tough predator, but they don't stand a chance against an actual dog or big cat. If you stuck an actual dog or big cat in there, they're toast. Likewise, lemurs, which are this lower order, primates, they're all over Madagascar because monkeys and apes weren't there, and they were all over India as well. And then India slammed into mainland Asia, and all of a sudden the lemurs got just their niche got overtaken by the big scary primates that are in Asia, and so now monkeys and orangutans and all sorts of stuff dominate in South Asia, and you don't really find lemurs there anymore. I'm getting on my tangents again, but anyway, look up giant sloths. They're hilarious, and all I can imagine is that there would be a marvelous thing to meet at some point. I had somebody message me earlier today. They're talking about eToro. So they do their trading on eToro, and they're asking me about how to get their money out of eToro. And one thing we discovered was that your eToro account, you cannot transfer shares to another brokerage with eToro. And that makes a problem for trying to get money out, because if you sell all of your shares and you keep it in cash, the insurance isn't high enough that if everyone makes a run on eToro to get cash out, you can run into liquidity problems and perhaps lose your money. But we discovered eToro's crypto trading is an actual wallet that you can send money out. So we concluded that if you are an eToro, your best bet with your winnings is to put it all into crypto and then send it to yourself in another wallet if you want to get out large sums of money out of eToro. So that might be the solution. So we chatted about that for like half an hour today before we discovered that might be your loophole with eToro when the MOAS happens. So think about that as an option, because my plan is perhaps with my brokerages, I can transfer to other brokerages, right? So if I have a huge amount of money in one of my brokerages as a result of MOAS, I would buy, index funds, blue chips, things like that. And then I can either request my broker to upgrade me to premium super ultra account, or I can go to a brokerage that specializes in handling rich people's money, where you get more access to liquidity with your account. You can withdraw more. Like Robinhood has like their $50,000 a day limit that you can withdraw. Well, if you get $100 million in there, withdrawing at $50,000 a day would be a freaking nightmare. So why not just buy a bunch of stocks and transfer into another brokerage, and then all of a sudden you can withdraw everything all at once. So that's something to think about. And if you are an account like eToro, where it's a trading app but not necessarily a brokerage where you own the shares, start looking at other options. You may have run into those problems if you're trading with CashApp or something else. So that's something to think about. I would ponder on that part of your exit strategy when we get there. Nino Savat, are you familiar with the work of Halton Arp? Do you think his redshift theory has any credibility? I'm not familiar with Halton Arp. Let's see here. Halton Arp redshift. Oops. Let's learn together, shall we? Halton Arp. Let's go to the Wikipedia page. Okay. So, astronomer. He was a critic of the Big Bang Theory and advocating non-standard cosmology. Intrinsic redshift. So he did this big survey of galaxies. Okay, so I think that his images had lots of error in them, and that he got images of galaxies, and some showed redshift, and others did not. And the ones that did not, he didn't realize were possibly in the foreground and not the background, and so they didn't have as much redshift. That appears to be. I'll have to look deeper into what he was theorizing. So quasars, if you don't know, quasars are active galaxies. So when these galaxies first formed, they started bonking into each other, consuming other galaxies, and the black holes were forming in the centers. The insides of these galaxies were so incredibly bright because you had lots of supernovas going off. You had lots of black holes gobbling things up and shooting beams of radiation out. And they were just really hot, gnarly things. And then, things calmed down after a time, after all these crazy collisions and explosions. And the galaxies became a little quieter, a little more normal. And so the last quasars we see are like 6-7 billion years ago. And we don't really see any quasars near us anymore because the galaxies have calmed down a lot more. We see a couple of spots where there are collisions happening not too far away, and we go, those galaxies look pretty active. But most of that stuff is old and far away. Yeah. But I'm not seeing... Yeah, it seems like he said that these high redshift objects appear to be like normal galaxies found nearby, but those galaxies actually weren't nearby. They were just in the foreground. Trevor Bates, can you explain puts and calls? I never had a clear idea of what each one does, what's safe to do, how they can screw you pretty hard. Love the show. Okay, so puts and calls, it takes people a little while to wrap their brains around it. When I started trading with them, I started with penny stocks that were cheap. And so, buy a call for $1 or whatever and see what happens. All right, so a call is betting the stock price is going to go up. A put is betting the stock price is going to go down. And so what you're doing is you are purchasing the rights to a future contract. And that contract has a clause, it has a contingency. If the share price does not hit the strike of the contract you're purchasing, it just expires and you lose your money on that contract. If it hits that strike price, then you are obligated to purchase 100 shares of that stock at the price that was negotiated for your contract. So we use GameStop as an example. If this time last year, GameStop was trading at what, $8 in August of last year, somewhere around there, $5, and you took a big bet, and you went to an options writer and you said, "Hey, I am betting that GameStop is going to hit a price of $100 by March 30th of next year." And the options writer goes, "Idiot. Yeah, I'll take that bet. I will sell you 100 shares of GameStop at $100 if it hits that price or higher. And the wager will be a penny a share. So for $1, you got a contract for 100 shares that if GameStop hit $100 or higher, you are going to guarantee you will pay $100 a share for those 100 shares. So $10,000 for those 100 shares if that stock price goes $100 or higher. If it doesn't go to $100 or higher, the options guy keeps the dollar you spent on that bet and they walk away happy." So what ended up happening was GameStop hit $330 a share. So your contract was what's called in the money. And now the options guy had to sell you 100 shares of GameStop for $10,000 when those shares are worth $33,000 or $35,000 or whatever. So the options guy ended up losing that bet and losing $25,000 on the deal, right? So a put is doing the opposite. Put is betting a stock's going to go down. So if, say, you think, I don't know, Wells Fargo, I don't know, they're trading like $30 or something. You think Wells Fargo is going to go down to $15 by January. And so you might buy a put that's at $20, at $18, somewhere around there, that's due to expire in January, February, sometime after the point you think the price is going to drop. And the option guy goes, "Idiot, it's not going to happen. But I'll sell you that option or that put at 2 cents a share, $1 a share, or whatever it might be. So let's say you buy that contract for 100 shares at $1 a share. So you spend $100 on that contract. Now, or sorry, you're guaranteed. I totally worded that wrong. This is the problem with puts and calls. With puts and call, with a put, you're guaranteeing you're going to sell that contract when it hits $15 or lower. And so if you think it's going to go lower than $15, you might set that at $20. And if it drops to 15, then all of a sudden you make $5 a share on those 100 shares. That's how you make your money. Oh, this is explaining puts and calls, and then you screw it up while you're explaining it. Really does not help clarify it for people. Just know a put is betting that's going to go down. A call is betting it's going to go up. And that's what you do with those. And you won't gain much experience until you tinker with them. And I recommend, if you're gonna tinker with them and learn, buy the ones that are really cheap. Focus on penny stocks that are really cheap and just kind of play with them a little bit. That way you might only lose $1 here and there. Because right now, if you are buying calls with AMC and GameStop and high volatility stocks, the price per share can be pretty exorbitant at times. It might be like $18 a share for 100 shares just to have the right to purchase it at a certain price. And that can be a big gamble for people. You're spending thousands of dollars on these options. So don't risk big money in options until you feel like you know what you're doing. Just take your time. Tinker with some penny stocks if you want to learn, or practice. Make a spreadsheet and practice with them until you feel like you have a good concept of what puts and calls mean. I have played with calls more than I have with puts. This time around, I am betting that there's going to be a big market correction, and so I've purchased more puts than I ever have before. Just betting that the market's going to drop. And so I got puts on indexes that follow the S&P 500 and things like that. And so if the S&P 500 does drop 20%, I can make a good amount of money off of those puts as a result. Okay. Brendan and Ella's Fun Adventures sent a little super chat. Thank you, Brendan and Ella. Much appreciated. Okay. Dr. Stonk is, I think, doing a better job in the comments explaining puts and calls than I just totally stumbled in my mouth there. Yeah. But these options can be complete lotto tickets. If you have an option, like in March or April, I bought $15 calls for AMC, and this is when AMC was trading at $8 or something, and I paid $67 for the option of buying AMC at $15. If it hit $15 or above, I would have to buy those shares. And come to the end of May, June, AMC rocketed past $15. And it was at, 20 something bucks. And I was like, hey, these options I bought for 67 cents are all of a sudden worth $1,200. Because for every dollar that the price of the stock goes up, the value of that option basically goes up $1. And so I was like, all right, good time to sell. I'm just going to sell these options and make $1,200 on them, and I'm cool. Well, the next day, the stock price shot to $70, and those options worth like $7,000 each, and I went because I totally missed the boat. But I still made a profit. I'm still happy about that, but I am kicking myself for not waiting one more day to sell those options, because $7,000 is a lot more than $1,200. So those options can be big time lotto tickets. The folks that bought options for GameStop at $300 or whatever, they may have paid $1 for those options, then all of a sudden the option's worth $30,000. when GameStop hit that price. So they are definitely a lot of tickets. But if you don't exercise, or you don't, if the price drops and you get to that expiration date and the options expire, all your money's gone and you lose out. So that's the big gamble you're taking with options. Darcy Shields, what is your take on the Mandela effect? Have you ever experienced any of them yourself? Well, the big one that I remember was the Berenstein Bears. Like, as a kid, I'm pretty sure it was Bernstein Bears. And then, all this stuff comes out, it's Berenstein. But then again, I'm a terrible speller. So I could have just been reading it wrong all this time. I don't know. So that's my take on the Mandela effect. I don't know if any of the other Mandela effects I've ever acknowledged or realized. But the Berenstein Bears is the only one that clicked with me. I was like, I'm pretty sure it was Bernstein Bears, not Berenstein. I think I remember my teacher calling it the Bernstein Bears when she would read the books to us in kindergarten and first grade. So maybe she was reading it wrong, and it just took some smartass to actually read the words correctly, so that everyone goes, "Oh, it's Berenstein? That's weird. I don't remember that." But that's the only one I have. Is it real? I don't know. Are we in the Matrix and constantly being reset constantly? I have no way to prove that until someone takes me out of the Matrix and I'm no longer like a battery thing. I read a tweet the other day that was like, Neo did all that and he was still a virgin. Talking about the Matrix. I'm like, yeah, he was a battery and then just a 35-year-old virgin. That's true. It's very true. Very true about Neo. Okay. Okay, lots of puts and options discussions. Let's see here. Is there another question here? Bart Sears, do you believe the big exchanges buy shares and reroute them through secondary exchange for thousands of dollars? I don't know. I mean, if you and I are buying shares at $30, why would a big company buy them for more than $30? I think they are buying shares, whatever's available, as much as they can, because that's the cheapest way to do it. And so if they get a real share in their account, cool. If they get a synthetic share in their account, they don't care. As long as they get, those placeholders in their account, they're happy, because they can still benefit off of the MOAS when it comes time. The ones that may be paying thousands of dollars a share might be brokerages when they have to transfer from one account to another, because they can't transfer synthetics between accounts. They have to seek out and find the actual physical share. So I don't know if they are going to another account and saying, hey, I'll pay you $3,000 for that share and doing that, or if they've got to buy 10 or 20 shares and then pull out the real ones, stick them into the account that they can then transfer. And that's why we saw things like that Wealthsimple transfer from Wealthsimple to TD Ameritrade, where the average share price was like $3,000. I don't know what mechanisms at play there, but I think the big boys don't want to spend lots of money on real shares, because they can make just as much money off their synthetics as they can the real shares when the MOAS hits. It's because the trading computers have to buy everything, so they will, and that's, I think, the what they're playing with. Crossbones, I'm currently unvaccinated but want to get a vaccine. Which is the best and most effective? As far as efficacy goes, the Moderna and Pfizer have the highest efficacy, meaning that even with the variants like Delta, there's a 90 to 95% chance you won't experience symptoms if you do get infected, whereas without a vaccine, it's like 60%. The Johnson & Johnson and the AstraZeneca, they were pretty effective against like Alpha and the original variant, the original strain that came out of Wuhan. But their effectiveness, their efficacy has dropped quite a bit. I think AstraZeneca is like 70% against Delta. And so, but the boosters, the studies with the booster shots so far. So if you get a third shot 6 to 8 months after your original 2, the efficacy shoots right up to almost 100%. So it sounds like next month they're going to be opening up third shot boosters for everybody. My roommate he's a film guy, cinematographer, editor, and he had to go on a film job to Las Vegas, and he asked his doctor if he could get a third booster, and they gave it to him, no problem. So you might be able to get one now if your doctor's willing to give it to you. But I dig the technology of the mRNA vaccines. I have my faith totally in them. So that's what I'd shoot for. Pfizer and Moderna for sure. I don't like the AstraZeneca vaccine, namely because they lied about the initial efficacy. They seem to have a lot more side effects with theirs, but it's better than nothing. It's better than not being vaccinated at this point. I probably lost a lot of Twitter followers because I keep telling people to get vaccinated, but man, get vaccinated. Just get it. Let's end this stupid pandemic and we can go back to living our lives the way we want and not have to talk about this ever again. That'd be wonderful. But thank you for considering it and looking to go out there and get vaccinated. It warms my heart that folks are heeding my calls and doing that. Thank you. Nick Callis, super chat. So if I sell my AMC shares and there's $2 million in my Webull account, is it best to quickly buy an asset like AT&T, protect my money? That's the plan I'm doing. The way I see it is, because we're a negative beta stock, that if we shoot through the roof, that's because the market is taking a huge nosedive. And so let's say, I don't know, you get $2 million in your account all of a sudden, but the Dow has gone down 20 or 30%, maybe more. It'd be an awesome time to go in and scoop up some of those shares there in the Dow or the S&P 500 or some of the indexes that follow those things, because they're going to be depressed 20 or 30%. And if you look at the S&P 500 over time, it goes up, right? Like it goes up over time. And so you might have a dip and then it shoots right back up again. So you might be able to gain another 30% on that 2 million or 50% on that 2 million. You might be able to double it. Who knows? If you buy that dip in the market with your winnings of from your AMC and GME sells. And so that's my plan, is that if you don't have that cash in your account but you got stock certificates, then it's harder for your broker to screw with you, and it's easier to transfer all that stock out than it is to try and pull all that cash out. So that's how I'm that's my plan, is to just buy up a bunch of stocks, or if you are in like eToro, get a bunch of crypto, and you can move that crypto out of there to wherever you want, anywhere in the world. Yeah. So Nick, I think that's a good plan. Maybe not necessarily just AT&T, but diversify your blue chip buys after that. That's probably a very wise idea. Again, not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just thinking about plans for the future as to how our exit strategy from our exit strategy. Exit strategy squared. Victor Govyadov. I'm sorry if I mispronounce people's names. I'm so sorry. Do you think humans will evolve by artificial DNA modification, aka designer babies? If so, will we split into multiple subspecies of human beings? Ooh, that's a good philosophical question. I had never thought about genetic engineering until I read the Red Dwarf books. Now, Red Dwarf is a TV show by Doug Naylor and Rob Grant. There was a British sci-fi comedy about this guy stuck in space. And there are these things called gelfs, genetically engineered life forms. And they encountered gelfs every once in a while. They're these weird mutants that were designed to be things. And the books are absolutely just brilliant sci-fi. If you have a chance to read any of the Red Dwarf books, Last Human, Better Than Life, I can't remember the other ones, but they're so funny and so smart. That's entertaining read. Read the Red Dwarf books. They are brilliant. They're written by the guys who created the TV show. And in one of the books, they're talking about genetically engineered life forms, and like, they took human DNA and they engineered it in such a way so that like you had a couch that was a living being and sentient, and like you sit in your couch and it would just give you a massage and talk about the day or whatever. And but the problem was is that some guy would come home and find his wife having an affair with the couch because she would fall in love with him or whatever. So whether genetic engineering will ever get to that level, I doubt that. But I do think that we probably will have the ability to eliminate specific chromosomal diseases. Like, I'm thinking about like Dravet syndrome. There's a disease that affects 1 in 100,000 babies, maybe 1 in a million, and it's chromosomal. They're genetically born with it as part of their DNA structure. And for a long time, they thought the MMR vaccine was making babies have this thing called encephalopathy, where they had pressure on the brain, and they would basically lose the ability to talk and communicate and just become much lower functioning. And because it happened around 6 months of age when these babies got the MMR vaccine. And then a doctor named Dravet, because it's called Dravet syndrome, in 2008 discovered the genetic marker that creates this disease. And so it actually wasn't the fact that this MMR vaccine was happening. It was that Dravet syndrome, the symptoms onset at about 6 months of age. So the baby seems pretty normal. Then at 6 months, when they at a certain stage of development, this gene turns on and completely just, makes that child very low functioning, mentally disabled. And so if you have the ability to test for that gene in your child, you could be like, hey, there's a few enough cells in there early on. You'd be like, hey, let's take those cells out, or maybe test the eggs or sperm. You'd be like, hey, we can actually make a child in a lab that won't have that genetic disease in there. I think a future like that, kind of Gattaca style, is very possible. It's going to take a bit more technology on microscales than we have right now to specifically edit those genes. Most of what the genetic engineering we do now, we take essentially like a gene gun and we fire those genes into a cell until they stick. That's kind of how Roundup Ready crops work. Is that you take like a piece of corn and you just inject these cells into the corn seed that protect the plant from Roundup or from a pesticide or herbicide. So it's not quite like a precise gene editing. It's like mashing this thing in there so that all of a sudden the cell goes, oh, I guess you're part of me now, and happens that way. There are viruses in the past that have attached themselves to our DNA because they got inside the cell structure of us and genetically changed us in the past. But I do think a future where we are literally replacing C's, G's, T's, and A's with more specific things is possible. I don't know what time scale, but I think that kind of Gattaca gene editing ability is out there somewhere in the future. But will it create multiple subspecies? I don't know. I think our greatest chance for creating subspecies of humans is if we colonize space and create multiple generations in space. That would be a definite evolutionary driver, being in low gravity environments. So I think that will be a great trigger for speciating human beings. And human beings technically speciate all the time. I don't mean for this to sound crude in any way, but if you have a genetic disorder where you have an extra chromosome or something like that, you can't procreate with another human being doesn't have that genetic disorder. So someone who has Down syndromes can't procreate with somebody who doesn't have Down syndrome. That, on a basal level is technically considered a form of speciation. That's how I talked a few weeks ago about the goat's beard flower that's found in eastern Washington. It came from somewhere in Eastern Europe, like Romania, got to the Western United States, and in a few short years had a mutation that doubled the number of chromosomes found in the cells. And now the goat's beard flower that is only a few generations removed from the one that's in Romania can no longer mate with each other. They just can't do it because of that genetic change. So there is things that happen here and there that can be considered a mutation that technically can be a speciation. But I don't want you to look at somebody who has Down syndrome and be like, you're a different species. They're human beings. They deserve love and compassion and everything else in this world. But they can't procreate with us. It's genetically impossible. So, yeah. But I think moving humans into space can definitely be a evolutionary driver for speciation, because that low gravity environment is going to trigger all sorts of survival of the fittest mechanisms. Okay. Nick Callis, I had COVID. It is indescribably bad. You get a taste in your throat like a bug died in your mouth. Cough and pneumonia is just a bonus. Oh man, I only know a couple of people that had mild cases, and even then they're like, it was the worst sickness I ever had. A friend of mine, his favorite hobby in the entire world is cooking, and it's been a year and he still can't taste anything, and he is just so depressed because all he wants to do is cook good meals and enjoy meals with his friends, and he can't. Everything just tastes like rotting cardboard, and he is so depressed. And it's little things like that you don't think about, like, hey, I may never be able to taste chocolate cake ever again. Yeah, so think about those things. Brendan Ella's Fun Adventures super chats. Can you explain Sears payout and time to buy at 12 cents, and when do you think we will get paid for the dividend? I have no idea when the dividend will get paid. That all has to do with how everything works out in bankruptcy court and what time scale. But Sears has like $20 billion in solid assets, something ridiculous like that. And that works out to, $17 a share or whatever was figured out. So they do owe stuff to creditors, but what they owe to creditors is less than the assets they hold. They own property and shares in other companies and things like that. The biggest telltale is that the largest shareholder of Sears had every opportunity to sell when it was like $30 a share and never did, and just held on to it and held on to it and held on to it and held on to it. And he's all he's done is bought more since then, because I think he knows that these assets that Sears owns is worth so much money that he's gonna make a good chunk of change at the end of it. And that's the example that if you are buying Sears right now, you're following his example, and you're just gonna buy these shares at pennies and sit on it. Now, Sears saw a little mini squeeze happen about a week after the baby squeeze, and that's because they've been naked shorted like crazy. So there's a whole bunch of shares out there of Sears that are synthetic. And so when you're buying those shares at 12 or 15 cents each, you have no idea, just like with GameStop, you have no idea if you're buying the real thing or if you're buying synthetic shares that were sold naked. So, I don't know how a squeeze potential would work with Sears when, it's no longer traded by most of the main brokerages. It probably will be something that can only be bought and sold by big institutions. So when they turn off that buy button on September 3rd, and you can only sell, you're probably selling to institutions and not other retail investors. But the way the Sears bankruptcy seems to play out is Sears has all these obligations. They don't necessarily have the cash on hand to pay those obligations. So they declare bankruptcy. And the bankruptcy court decides who gets what money. And because their assets are so much larger than what they actually owe, the bankruptcy court will probably force them to sell their assets, pay off their debts, and then take whatever's left over and give that to shareholders. and those shareholders should get, a good special dividend out of the whole thing. And that's probably how it worked. But I don't know the time scale. I haven't seen any recent updates as to how bankruptcy court's going for them. But my guess is if they're turning off trading for retail investors, it's sooner than later. Smooth Gotti Beats, welcome back, dude. Super chats. If the RRP goes higher day by day, can it trigger a squeeze? Could they let it squeeze next year? I hope, but not this. Hope not, but this GME questions, by the way. I think about that. So this is the reverse repo. I think if the reverse repo keeps going up and the banks are sitting on trillion or trillions of dollars of these U.S. treasuries, and we get into, further into September, closer to October, where the Treasury is warning about not being able to pay the interest on Treasury bonds, the value of the Treasury bonds will take a sudden drop because we'll probably have a downgraded credit rating as the United States, and that will drop the assets under management for every hedge fund, for every bank, for every mutual fund, for every pension fund, for every sovereign wealth fund. We will see assets under management drop a significant portion for every financial institution across the globe, because the $29 trillion in U.S. Treasury bonds are that foundation of their investment portfolios. And so if we see a significant drop in those assets, the value of those assets, that would definitely trigger the squeeze, especially if those banks are holding the bag. They paid trillions of dollars in cash to the Federal Reserve, and all of a sudden the assets they bought for trillions of dollars are worth $600 billion. They just lost 40% on them or whatever. Then yeah, that could be a definite trigger for the squeeze to happen, for sure. Adrian PD, great chat, very entertaining. Oh, thank you, Adrian. Okay, looking in the chats here. Gotta remember to drink my water. Okay, hydrated. Eminem is an android. No one can rap that fast. Who the fast? All right, this is a YouTube plug. Have you ever seen a Harry Mack? Holy smokes, that dude! He's a freestyle rapper that just blows my mind. Sometimes he comes with these freestyles that are just as fast and just off the top of his head. They're nuts. I recommend his videos. Every single one of them makes me smile. It's like if you ever need something to feel good, watch a Harry Mack video when he goes on like Omegle or something, and he has people give him 3 weird topics, and he does like a 7-minute freestyle rap about those topics. They're brilliant. I'm sure there's other freestyle rappers out there that can do the same thing, but he's the one I found that I'll end up watching his videos, and they make every single one of them just makes me love humanity whenever I watch it. This is from Mustard Homie. Do you believe that the true inflation is higher than what is actually being reported? Currently 5.4% last month. What's your best guess for what truly is? Here's the thing about the inflation we're seeing is that I think a lot of it isn't necessarily tied directly to inflation, but tied to scarcity and supply chain problems. So, like, we're seeing inflation in the price of cars. Like, the price of cars is going up. But it's not because the value of the dollar necessarily is going down. It's because car manufacturers can't pump out new cars at the same rate they should be able to, because they can't get semiconductors from China to put into the computer systems of these cars. And if they can't, they can build the car, but they don't actually have the computer chip to slide in there, then the car can't sell. We had problems at the beginning of the pandemic where like a Nissan plant could build the entire car, except they couldn't get the motors for the windshield wipers from the factory in China. If you don't have windshield wipers in your car, you can't sell your car to the public, because if you can't clear water off the windscreen, it's no longer a road worthy car. So I think we're seeing supply chain issues. So we saw in June a huge spike, like 50% went up on the price of used cars, largely because people couldn't buy new cars because they were so back ordered. They needed something. So they went to the used car market, and supply and demand, all of a sudden the demand for used cars went up. So all the used car dealerships started raising the prices on their cars. So I think a lot of the inflation we're seeing is a result of this scarcity that is inherent in a system that is having supply chain issues and is having logistics problems. So, ultimately, is that what triggers higher inflation, or is the inflation triggered by the scarcity? Is it going to be a feedback loop? I don't know. But the last time we had inflation growing like this was just before Bear Stearns bit the dust, and we full on went into the economic recession of 2008, 2009. So it is a big indicator as to when there's going to be a market correction and a credit crunch. Are fuel prices going up because of sanctions on Iran and Venezuela? Or are fuel prices going up because the U.S. dollar is worth less and everything is traded in crypto dollar or petrodollars, U.S. dollars? I don't know. It might be a little of both. It might be one more than the other. That's someone who is a bigger brain in economics might be able to answer that more clearly. But I think a lot of it, if I lean one way or the other, I think a lot of it has to do with scarcity and supply chain issues causing prices to go up on a lot of this stuff. And wages are going up significantly for the first time in a long time, because there are more jobs available than there are unemployed people currently. And why? I don't know. I think a lot of people that were working may have gone to school, right? So they're unemployed. They have nothing to do. They're like, oh, you know what? I'll go back and get my degree. So they left the job market and are now getting a degree at a college or online or whatever they're doing. And they are no longer in that job market. They no longer need to work for at least next couple of years. And when the restaurant where they worked reopens, all of a sudden they're missing a server that could be working there, or they're missing a line cook, or they're missing a dishwasher. And they're going out there looking for people to take that spot. But, you had 900,000 extra people die last year. You have a bunch of people probably on disability. You have a bunch of people went back to school, a bunch of people that finally were like, you know what, screw working in a restaurant, screw working in this factory. I've got this year off. I'm going to figure out something new with my life. And they may have started their own business. They may have moved into a different career. And so what we need probably in the job market is a big influx of immigrants. It used to be working in restaurants, the entire kitchen staff would be immigrants from Latin America. But we've been so hard on people immigrating here for work that they aren't coming anymore, at least not in the numbers they used to. And so there's in the service sector, there's so many jobs available and no one to work them that we may have to loosen our immigration policies to get people into this country to take those positions. Some of you were like, close our borders or whatever, but we need people to work the farms. We need people to serve us. We need people to take care of things and do the jobs that, quite frankly, Americans haven't been willing to do. For 400 years now, this country has taken in immigrants, and those immigrants are often low man on the totem pole, and they their market is to take those jobs that people who are born here really aren't willing to do. You're not going to go out and pick lettuce. You just aren't. So, we relegate those duties to newcomers. And when we hinder our ability to get that produce from those fields to market, the price is going to go up on those things, right? If you don't have people out there, they're picking lettuce and strawberries and cucumbers and avocados and whatever else, then less of that stuff is going to get the market, and the price is going to go up, and you're going to see inflation as a result of that. So we may need to invite more people into this country to work jobs that we aren't willing to do ourselves. And yeah, so that's where we are. Okay. N. Will. Houston, what makes you so confident MOAS will happen? There seem to be so many ways for them to delay any significant price movement. Oh, yeah. They will delay as long as they possibly can. My confidence that MOAS will happen is that eventually someone's going to trip and stumble, or somebody's going to want to get paid. And that seems to be the big kicker, is that someone wants their money in the end, and they're going to get it. And the hedge funds can't postpone forever. They were able to do it before when it really wasn't affecting the big institutions, because they could short this thing down to zero, and then the stock no longer exists. They don't have to pay it back. Cool, no one cares. But the fact they tried to short the stock down to zero, and then it bounced up to dozens of times the value of what they had shorted it to, all of a sudden made these obligations gigantic. And they owe so much money to so many big, important institutions and people that they're going to make them pay at some point. And, they aren't just hurting the retail investors anymore. They're hurting a lot more important, regal country club types with bottom tooths and, polo horses. And those guys want their money. So that's my confidence, is that they can kick the can down the road for a certain amount of time, but eventually, that mob boss is going to make them pay. You got to pay. So, No Revolution 105 writes, Sears has a bankruptcy omnibus hearing September 27th. Ooh, so okay. So we'll look for some news at September 27th hearing. Thank you, No Revolution, for putting that in the chat, because I didn't know the date on that. Christopher Sawchuk super chats. Oh, that's him mentioning that Sears has the exact thing I just said. He put a link in there. Restructuringprimeclerk.com. Sears Omnibus is what it is. All right, cool. Omnibus is what Miss Bissell drives. There you go. So Christopher Sawchuk in super chat put the link to the date on there. Thank you. That's excellent. Very helpful. Thank you so much. We got 204. I can go to maybe 232, 245 today. My sister brought my niece and nephew to Bainbridge to go camping, and I have to go spend time with them. So I shouldn't waste too much time with my internet friends and actually go enjoy my little niece and nephew and let them know they have an uncle. So I have to go do that at some point. What's the ticker for Sears? It's SHLDQ is Sears Holding. And some brokerages will not let you trade it right now. Fidelity won't let you buy it. I had to buy my Sears from through Schwab. And I guess TD Ameritrade, you can still buy it through TD. So you have until September 3rd, I think, before they turn off the buy button, if you want to pick some up. And it's a gamble. I threw a few $100 at it, bought a couple thousand shares, and again, just wait and see. Wait and see what happens. I'll let the more important people fight over that stuff and figure out the ultimate fate I have, because I have no power. I'm just along for the ride. Okay, looking for the chit chats. That's the inflation question. Smooth Guy to Beats asks, can they drag the squeeze out until next year? Is it possible? I assume so, but that only depends on if the market doesn't have a hiccup between now and then. I think if the market takes a big correction, then the squeeze happens, because we're that negative beta stock. The value of our shares will go up so much compared to the value of the assets under management. It's just going to trigger automatic margin calls for everyone. So as long as they can keep the market from taking a big old dip, then they can probably push it off as long as possible. But if the market does take that dip, then their a method of kicking the can down the road, I don't think has merit anymore. And they got to either figure out something new, or they're facing their comeuppance. Oh my gosh, this name is so brilliant. Pastor Blunt Around. Oh, what? You guys and your puns are so brilliant. Okay. Pastor Blunt Around says, are you familiar with Randall Carlson's work on theories on superfloods and mass extinction events in the Americas? What are your thoughts on him? Well, I know about superfloods. Those have happened, and they probably have resulted in mass extinctions. But the Earth only has the ability to flood so much water before it's used all the water. So this notion of like a Noah's Ark type flood that covers the entire planet and there's no land visible, there's not enough water on the planet to do that. There's enough water to raise sea levels probably another 350 feet or so. If you melt all the land ice into the oceans, ocean levels go up like 350 feet, which is a significant amount. I mean, that inundates the eastern seaboard. That floods much of the plain states and up the Mississippi River. So, Bangladesh is gone. Most of Saudi Arabia in the Arabian Peninsula is gone. That will flood many areas with lots of people and animals in it. So that type of flood is very real, but super flood on the scale of like a Noah's Ark is physically impossible. There will still be land masses and places for creatures to go. But if you're looking at creatures that only live in these like estuaries or only in lowland forests or plains, a big flood of sea level rising can wipe those out. I'll have to look more into exactly what Randall Carlson's theory is. Randall Carlson's super floods. Oh, he's talking about Ice Age floods. Okay, so cataclysmic floods. Those are things like Eastern Washington. Where's my quick scene? There's Google Earth. The super floods that made like the scablands in Eastern Washington, which is one of the geologic wonders of the world. Are the scablands? So we can go up here to the Cooley country in Eastern Washington, and we can see these ancient river systems. You can just see them scarred into the earth, and this is where the Lake Missoula floods broke out and flooded what is Eastern Washington, and because the glacier fingers came across, blocked off a valley, the whole valley filled with water, and that whole thing just flooded everywhere. And these glacial lakes were very common. The Puget Sound area. This was a lowland valley, and there's lots of river systems that came out of the mountains and flowed through this valley and then flowed out into Straits of Juan de Fuca and out from there. And when the glaciers came down, it blocked off, as the glaciers came down, it blocked off the access to Straits of Juan de Fuca, and this huge inland lake formed behind the glacier. We're talking hundreds, maybe thousands of feet deep. And as the glacier progressed south, it moved that lake further and further and further south. And then the lake, pushed through here. And when everything receded, all that water rushed back out again. So there were lots of glacial lakes that formed as a result of these things. So there's probably many versions of these floods that happen elsewhere in the world. We might not necessarily see evidence of them as big and as powerful as the Lake Missoula floods that made the scablands of Eastern Washington, but there's a lot of them. Yeah. Okay, I missed like a ton of super chats while talking about floods. That's Christopher Sawchuk and Pastor Blunt around. Phil C. Okay. What's up with space debris? Apparently a big issue, but we couldn't see any when Elon launched his car into space. What's the deal? Well, all right, space is really big. I mean, the orbital field around the Earth is quite large. It's a huge surface area. And we've got 300,000 or so pieces of debris and satellites in orbit. Now, let's zoom out to little ball Earth here. Okay. Now, if you put 300,000 people around the surface of the Earth, and the Earth is what? How many square miles is the Earth? Square miles surface of Earth. All right, so the Earth is 196 million square miles, 200 million square miles more or less. And, oh, here, we'll calculator it. Yay, calculator. Okay, turn off Chrome. Turn off Google Earth. We got the calculator. All right. So there's our calculator. So we've got 200 million square miles. Clear. So 200 million square miles. And now let's just imagine that there's only 300,000 people on Earth. So we divide that sucker by 300,000. And so each person gets 666 square miles to themselves, right? So in space right now, everything in space has essentially, in space a little bit further out, so the surface area is a little higher, and they're at different orbital heights. Some of them are at 100 miles, some of them are at 200 miles. So if we just assume that all 300,000 pieces of debris that are floating around the Earth and satellites are all in the exact same plane, each one of those gets 666 square miles of space. So the odds of a little nut hitting a satellite are pretty low. We're going to fly right past each other most of the time. But as we fill up those orbital levels in space, and we have orbits that change height because they might be more elliptical and things like that, we start to reduce the amount of autonomous space each piece of debris has. So the likelihood of collisions increase every time you put more objects into space, right? And the big satellite systems like SoftBank and Starlink, they're going to be putting up tens of thousands of these microsatellites for doing satellite phone networks and internet networks all over the globe. And so that's going to increase, a whole bunch of satellites in just one orbital zone. And the basis behind the Kessler effect is essentially this fear that if you get a big enough collision, it can cause a chain reaction throughout all the other satellites that are orbiting. So if you have, SoftBank and a Starlink satellite crash and explode, and they each create 10,000 pieces of debris, then all of a sudden those 10,000 pieces of debris fly out in all sorts of random directions at tens of thousands of miles an hour. And the odds of those pieces of debris hitting another satellite and creating 10,000 more pieces of debris, and then those ones hit another satellite, and so on. It becomes like this exponential effect across the entire low Earth orbit zone where all these satellites live. Is that the Kessler syndrome is a very real possibility that there can be a chain reaction of collisions that just quadruple, quintuple, orders of magnitude increase the number of debris out there. So all of a sudden we go from 666 square miles per piece of debris to, square inches of pieces of debris all of a sudden. And, if you get a few billion pieces of debris out there, all of a sudden you've got lots and lots of debris for each square mile of space, and it'll shred everything. And there'll be so much debris in the end that we wouldn't even be able to launch a rocket into space, because as it entered space, the debris would just shred it to pieces and add to that whole problem. So we would be trapped on the surface of the Earth for who knows how long, for thousands of years, until that debris finally decayed and fell into the atmosphere and burned up. So that's the deal with space debris. It can be a very big issue if we start launching too much stuff into space and we aren't keeping track of where these things are orbiting and keeping them away from each other. And a lot of the debris we can't track because places like China, they launch rockets into space and they crash those rockets into satellites to prove that they can destroy a satellite with a missile, and then just makes a bunch of debris and adds to the problem. So, yeah. What's the deal, man? That's the deal. Back to Big Houston. Manifest Destiny. Speaking of puns, just want to hear you pronounce my username. Oh, I'd never say it right, do I? Manifest Density. Damn it. It's funny to hear you name your name correctly just once. Yes, manifest density. God damn it. See, I can't read. That's why I got the whole Berenstein Bears thing all screwed up. Because I read it as Bernstein. Deck P Houston, the VIX shot up, but totally, but GME dropped. That's weird. GME should usually follow the VIX, but I don't know why. We had greens on other ones. Costs and AMD were all going green, weren't they? Look at my charts here. Yeah, cost went green. Oh, AMC went red at the end of the day. But weird. AMC or GME kind of followed Microsoft today. That's strange. Yeah, they'll kind of have this weird drop and taper right at like noon. Strange. Yeah. Okay. Oh shoot, there's a couple of them from Chris Taylor here. So manifest density. I'm gonna manifest density. But remember that. Chris Taylor, Houston, what are your thoughts on the notion of descheduling and decriminalization of all substances for personal possession and use? For the most part, yeah. I think that we should probably decriminalize drugs. Switzerland years ago with heroin, they had a huge heroin epidemic. The crime was through the roof. Lots of their city parks were just full of derelicts who were addicts from heroin, and they were committing crimes to get a fix. And Switzerland just said, you know what, heroin is legal, it's now free, but if you want it, you have to come to this clinic where a doctor is going to administer a safe dose, and you're going to get your fix. None of these people wanted to be addicted to heroin. They didn't. They just were. They were physiologically addicted to this substance. And they wanted to not be addicted, but they didn't have any outs. And so by creating this space where these folks could get their fix for free and not have to pay a dealer, they eliminated the market, the drug dealer market for heroin. And they went to the doctor's office, and the doctor gave them a safe dose. And while they were there, they gave them treatment options like, hey, would you like to try moving to methadone, or would you like to go to a equivalent of NA or counseling? And what they discovered was these folks all of a sudden could be productive members of society as long as they got their fix, and they were given the options of tapering. And within a few short years, Switzerland essentially eliminated heroin addicts in their country. They just vanished. They got the treatment they needed, and they were no longer out there committing crimes and causing other problems. Now, I do think some drugs, it's a little harder to do that with. Like, you give someone heroin, they're going to take a nap. You give someone methamphetamines, they're going to go bonkers, right? So I think some of the things with methamphetamines might be, we might decriminalize and offer treatment, but we also may work with India and Thailand, where these super factories that make ephedrine and pseudoephedrine and other ingredients that go into methamphetamines, we pay them not to make this stuff, or we figure out some way to stop the mass production of these things, because that's how it gets made. We did it with Quaaludes. We basically shut down all the factories around the world that made the base ingredients for Quaaludes, and you can't find them anywhere. They just don't exist because it takes such an industrial system, like huge manufacturing, some of these big pharmaceuticals to make the ingredients for these Quaaludes, that if the big factories aren't making those ingredients, no one has access to them at all. So I think we can probably do something similar with a lot of these methamphetamines. And, especially when it's like nonviolent offenders, if they can get access to their fix and it's not costing them a bunch of money, they aren't going to commit crimes for this stuff. And the property crimes and related to and muggings and things like that, and related to drug abuse, I think outweigh the effects of the drug on the individual person themselves. So I lean much more to decriminalization and treatment than I do on this war on drugs. Let's throw everybody who smokes weed in jail and ruin their lives. That's my opinion on substance abuse. Keep the same rules for driving under the influence. If somebody is high out of their mind, they shouldn't be on the roads. So, because that's when it starts to affect other people. And when your substance abuse affects other people, that's when the laws should be involved. But if it's not affecting anybody, it's not hurting anyone, do your drugs. I don't care. And Krista also asked, what my thoughts are on privatized prisons. I think privatized prisons should be made illegal. I think prisons should be operated by the state, run by the state, managed by the state, overseen by the state, and that we shouldn't run prisons for profit, because when we do, all of a sudden the judicial system and the government doesn't necessarily know what's going on inside those prisons, and a lot of money is being wasted. I think prisons should be much more focused on rehab and helping prisoners not reoffend than focused on punishment for punishment's sake. There are certain people that should never be let out of prison. I think there are people that are so, lack empathy and might fall in that cluster B personality disorders of narcissism and psychopathy and sociopathy, that they may never be able to be a functional member of society, and they'll just cause problems. But there's also a lot of folks whose they ended up in prison not because they're bad people, but because they grew up in nothing but trauma, and they don't have the tools to not commit the crimes, or they committed crimes because that was the only way they could survive, or they lash out because of the trauma they experienced. They don't have the support system to deal with that trauma. And so the systems that they have in places like Norway, I think, are way more productive, and they've way less recidivism. They don't torture or hurt their prisoners. We've got prisons in the U.S. in places like Texas and Louisiana that don't have air conditioning, and these prisoners are dying from heat stroke because in the summertime it can reach 150 degrees inside these concrete cells, and no human being can survive that. That's just torture. That's just cruel and unusual punishment. And just air condition them. Give them access to education. Give them therapy. Let them talk through these issues that have affected them in profound ways. Just because we're lucky enough to perhaps have a loving family that taught us right and wrong and didn't give us examples of doing drugs at home or committing crimes to survive, doesn't mean that they can't also have those examples at some point and lead a better and more productive life. I axe private prisons. I would outlaw them across the nation, in all states and everywhere. Let the government do the government's job. That's what they're for. Okay. Jeremy Gavisk. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and kindness and time. I always look forward to your live stream. Oh, thank you, Jeremy. I love all you folks. I mean, you got 600 of you hanging out with me right now, shooting the shit, asking questions, talking about philosophy and science and stocks. This is like my favorite thing in the entire world to do. I so look forward to being able to do this. And if I can get you guys to like 30 or 50,000 subscribers, I can do this like all the time. So yeah, subscribe away. We're going to get there eventually. Have your friends come and watch, and then we can chit chat constantly. Oh shoot, I just missed. Okay, there's Chakuseki. Have you seen the anime Made in Abyss? Pretty awesome show about exploring mysterious pit in Earth. I highly recommend it. I have not seen it. I've never heard of it. So it's the first time I heard it. Made in Abyss. I bet you my nerd roommate has totally seen this. Okay. Anime Made in Abyss. He'll probably explain the whole thing to me. But I've not seen it. The deep parts of the ocean, we are so unexplored. I mean, we didn't even know how deep the ocean was until really after World War II, when we took all that sonar technology and mapped the oceans. We didn't know all these trenches exist. They were completely foreign, outer space to us. Okay. Oh, that was Chakasuki. That was Jeremy. That was Lewis 1899 Losoyo. How likely is it that an effect of MOAS, we create hyperinflation and end up right back where we started? Well, you and I and probably 4 to 10 million other people in the United States or around the world will suddenly have a lot of money on our hands we didn't have before. And my guess is a whole bunch of spending is probably going to happen. That these folks, they're going to buy houses, they're going to buy cars, they're going to pay off debt, they're going to go on vacations, they're going to buy boats, they're going to do a lot of spending is going to happen. But a lot of that spending is not going to be buying a whole bunch of more milk. They're not going to be buying, more back to school supplies. They're not going to be buying more gasoline. You only drive so much with your fancy new car. But there's going to be a lot more velocity of money immediately after the MOAS. But in the end, I think most people aren't going to burn through their supply because we are investors and we're going to reinvest. So that will there might be a initial like, hey, spend all this stuff, now I'm living the good life, but a big chunk of it is going to go back into reinvestment, and that will slow down the velocity of that money. So we might not see as much inflation as feared. I mean, if all of us went out and just bought nothing but like spiral binders, pencils, socks, televisions, apples, we would see all sorts of crazy inflation happen with the prices of those things. I don't know if that's what will cause hyperinflation, because, we will get a whole bunch of winnings, but the rest of the market will have a complete collapse. And when the market collapses, people are less likely to travel, they're less likely to drive, they're less likely to buy new things. And so when we had the economic collapse of the Great Recession, 0809, all of a sudden gasoline dropped below $2 a gallon after it had been at $4 a gallon a few months earlier. August 2008, gas is at $4 plus a gallon. March, April 2009, gas is $1.95. So, that market collapse reduces the price a whole bunch. And the same thing with the shutdown of the economy at the beginning of COVID in March. The economy went boink, and gas prices completely dropped. The price of all sorts of consumer goods dropped along with it. So, I think it might be kind of one of those leveling effects where it goes big on one side and drops on the other, and we might not see hyperinflation across the board as a result. Okay. Bunch more happy birthdays in there. You guys are so weird with the happy birthdays. I can't even explain it. I'm trying to explain how everyone wishes me happy birthday all the time to my family, and they're like, you're insane. It's true, they do. They're always wishing me a happy birthday, and I don't know how it started. It just did. Was I on a show around my birthday? I can't remember. I started this whole show thing around then, and then just kept going from there. Okay. Let's see. Looking for the questions. Houston, thoughts on UAP? Christopher Mellon's family financed Tesla and had a professional relationship. Trump's grandfather also investigated Tesla's notes after his death. Coincidence? UAP? What's UAP? I have to look that up. I don't know what you're referring to there. UAP. Oh, unidentified aerial phenomena. Okay, so that's along the UFO lines. Well, lots of people financed Tesla. JP Morgan financed Tesla. Westinghouse financed Tesla. A great book. Time for book recommendations again. This is a really great biography on Tesla by Margaret Cheney. A Man at a Time. It'll take a couple days to read, but it's a really great biography on Tesla by a biographer named Margaret Cheney. It was a fascinating read. It also has a great collection of pictures of things that happened throughout Tesla's life in there. I recommend it. So much of Tesla's notes were lost. So there are no notes that lead to a lot of discoveries that Tesla made. There's a funny story that Mark Twain wrote about a car Tesla made that ran off the magnetic field of the Earth. And Mark Twain's like, Tesla came by my hotel, picked me up, we got in this car, and he like took these crystals out of his pocket and set them in a little cup, and the car just started driving. And apparently it ran off the magnetic field, and no one knows how it works because the laboratory where Tesla built this car, when he was doing other lightning experiments, just burned down along with all of his notes in the car itself. And Tesla was not the type to redo his experiments. He did it once, figured out how it worked, and he moved on from there. And so whenever his laboratories burned down, we lost, so much information that humanity could use so desperately. But he wasn't like, oh no, my magnetic car burned down, I should build another one. He's like, meh, on to the next discovery. So it's pretty phenomenal what's out there. And so like a lot of those notes were the last stuff that he worked on, because before he died. Everything else is just lost to the times. He never bothered finding patents for a lot of this stuff. I think the only thing he really patented was AC, alternating current. And that's it. I don't know if he patented anything else. And he invented AC current when he was like a kid, I think, if I remember correctly. When he was back in Croatia, Serbia, wherever he was in the Balkans, before he came to the U.S. And that was the 60 hertz cycle, whatever. But yeah, a lot of his notes out there were just a tiny fraction of what actually he had produced over the course of his career. So there's probably not too much. He probably worked with everything that was in those notes. It's all the stuff that was lost, that got burned down in various laboratories in Colorado or Long Island or Brooklyn or wherever he was doing his work. So that's like, the modern day equivalent of the Library of Alexandria burning. Was every time Tesla burned down his laboratory by accident. Bullish super chats. Part of my MOAS money will go into researching gout. I got diagnosed with it last year, and just going through my second flare-up, loving the stream TV. Oh man, I feel for you. I have a family member who has gout, and for those who don't know, gout is when uric acid builds up in your joints and causes all sorts of pressure in your joints, and it hurts like hell. There are medications and things out there that supposedly help. You might have seen those commercials of like the people carrying around big giant flasks of green liquid, and they're talking about, you have all this gout in your system. It's a weird parable they're using, or analogy they're using for that. But that uric acid will build up in your joints and just hurt like hell, and you go through a lot of joint pain. So I'm sorry, Bullish, that you're going through that. And by all means, like, please, if you're going to invest in things, invest in R&D. As a world, all that R&D research pays off big time. And especially if you're going to try and help people get healthier and lead better lives, you have my blessing. Help pay for that research, Bullish. I will praise you all day long for helping do that for people. Potassium citrate over and over. What are we looking at? Elon Husk. Why are you talking about potassium citrate? Why are you mentioning potassium citrate there? Ivan Simak. He was Serbian but living in Croatia, like region. Thank you. My one of my roommates is a Serbian refugee from Croatia, and he's like, he's Serbian but from Croatia. Okay. Recreational Wax Museum, Gorilla Glue. Only wax museum I've ever been to is the Madame Tussauds in Victoria, BC. I've never been to any other wax museum. I don't know. I did it as a kid. It was interesting. Like, yeah, that looks like Elvis. That looks like Richard Nixon for sure. That looks like Marilyn Monroe. I mean, incredible skills in those wax museums. I don't know if I ever need to go to one again. Nick Sexton, Houston, wrinkle brains tend to love board games. Are board games part of your monthly self-care regimen? I play board games usually when I'm with my friends. My two best friends. So my childhood best friend and my best friend from college, I introduced them to each other, and they are now married. And it's the most wonderful thing in the entire world to see that. All I have to do is go to one house and I see my two favorite people in existence, and they play board games a lot. So I go over there and play with them. I can't remember the names of all of them. I'll play like Settlers of Catan and what's the railroad one. Also played a fun one recently that's like you have these penguins you have to flick across like an icy schoolhouse and collect fish. Crazy stuff. But my favorite board game of all time is Trivial Pursuit. I am undefeated from childhood on. I have never lost a game of Trivial Pursuit. It is my greatest skill in life is Trivial Pursuit. And I would love to play like, Ken Jennings or James Holzhauer or Buzzy Cohen in a game of Trivial Pursuit, just so like someone can finally just make me feel like a bug. Just crush me for once. When someone needs to just kick the shit out of me in Trivial Pursuit for once. I'll play with my friends and it'll just be me versus a room full of people. And Trivial Pursuit, I win. It's just where my skill is. Other people might be able to draw pictures and play music really well. I can recall pointless information and win Trivial Pursuit. But I do enjoy board games. I'm also a puzzle addict. I go through waves where I literally spend way too much money on jigsaw puzzles, and will spend hours a day. Like the beginning of COVID was really, really bad for my jigsaw puzzle addiction. I was putting them, 2 or 3 of them together a day. And then I discovered Microsoft Jigsaw Puzzle, and that much easier on my neck and spine from having to lean over a table. But B, also way too many puzzles. I mean, there's an infinite number of puzzles available with Microsoft Jigsaw Puzzle. And the big problem I have with them is that the biggest puzzle you can do is 600 pieces. And I need like 5,000 piece jigsaw puzzles to put together. I could do the 600 piece Microsoft puzzle in like an hour and a half, maybe. I've joked for years with my friends about like starting a Twitch channel where every night people can just watch me silently put together a 600 piece jigsaw puzzle on Microsoft Jigsaw Puzzle, and that could be my Twitch channel. I don't know. Yeah. Can you get in trouble on Twitch if you're like listening to music? I have no idea how that works, because I kind of just put on Run the Jewels and put together a puzzle. That's a nightly routine for me quite often. But yeah, I mean, who doesn't like playing a board game? Board games are fun. It's always fun to do battle with someone. Okay. Ivan Simak's also Croatian refugee. I'm sorry I had to go through that, man. It's tough. Hearing what my roommate's family went through to get out of the war there was just gnarly. So you have my undying respect. That place was absolute just chaos from the sounds of it, and yeah, I want to go to Croatia really bad. Like my dream ever since I was a kid was to sail the Dalmatian coast, and that's probably going to be one of my splurges post MOAS, is chartering a boat and going from like Venice to Tritsy, Slovenia, like that area down the Dalmatian coast, probably to Montenegro, Greece. I've always wanted to do that, and I'll have the money and ability too post MOAS. So I want to check those places out. Number letters. Do we know how long shares stay in the dark pool for? No. The payment for order flow stuff is supposed to be instantaneous, but Citadel keeps getting busted delaying that payment for order flow. So you buy a share and they just dump a synthetic in your account and fail to deliver and go days or weeks before they find the share cheaper and finally buy it and put it in your account. So they got busted for doing that for like 90% of their payment for order flow transactions last summer, and their fine was like $700,000. So it was just the cost of doing business. I wouldn't doubt if a lot of those shares sit in the dark pool and that payment for order flow stuff for a long time until the share is probably cheap enough for them to make a profit off their payment for order flow. Smooth Guy Beats, what's the point of a wax museum? I don't know. So that you can go look at a facsimile of a famous person and go, yeah, that's what they look like. And then go on to the next one. I don't know. Oh, 2:42. Okay, I can do a few more minutes here, then I gotta bail and go see my family. Let's get another good question out of you folks here. Okay, a lot of people talking about weed and stuff in there. I don't care. All right. Oh, Ian Rain asked, Houston, ever get a chance to ask your sister about my questions the other day regarding a collider and black holes, wormholes? I'm going to go see her in about 20 minutes. So I'm going to ask her opinion on that right now. For those of you who don't know, my sister's nuclear physicist, so she's much better with the smaller things than I am. So I will ask her. She is a real life like superhero. She's a PhD, 4 master's degrees, captain in the Navy, up for admiral. At one time, she was the highest ranked female sharpshooter in the Navy. Played college baseball with a bunch of dudes. Like, she's a total badass. And so I'm gonna go see her in about 20 minutes, where they're camping near me. Yeah, so I can ask her. I'll ask her, and then maybe Friday I'll have an answer for you when I can get back on. So look for an answer on Friday. Pop on Friday show. The last hot sauce. Can you explain why you think the buying pressure will suddenly drop? Don't they have to buy back all the shares, or do they just have to buy until they find all the real shares? So it's from the last hot sauce. So when the trading computers take over, the way the DTC said in a memo back in May, they said, we won't care about price. Our goal is to close out these positions as fast as possible and get this over with as soon as we can. So that, to me, that says these trading computers are going to buy whatever shares are available, and they're going to buy just swaths of shares, just keep scooping them out of those limit orders and whatever comes up in market. And at the end of each day, when they do the closing, they go, okay, this is a real share. It can go and replace this share that's over here. This is synthetic, and now that's a real share in that account. Okay, this one's a synthetic share. We can just delete this from existence. Don't have to worry about it anymore. This one's a real share, goes over here. This one's a fake share, delete, fake share, delete, fake share, delete, real share, goes over here. And then, they go, okay, at the end before trading the next day, they say, okay, we've closed out 150 million of the 2 billion shares we need to close out. Let's keep going. And they're going to buy. And then that next evening, they go, okay, we'll close this one out, close this out here. This one gets deleted. This one goes over here. This one gets deleted. And they go, okay, we got 300 million shares done. We now need 1.7 billion more. And they're going to do it all over again. And they're going to do that until they've closed out all of the synthetics. They've deleted all the synthetics from existence or replaced those synthetics with a real share stuck into someone's account. And when they've finally done that, they're going to stop buying. And the moment they've bought enough shares to close everything out, the buy pressure will evaporate. And all of a sudden, wonk, it's done. Much of like what we saw with the Volkswagen squeeze wasn't necessarily forced buying by the trading computers, but buying by hedge funds being forced to close out those positions on their own, or brokerages just doing it for them. But I think we're going to get to a point that's going to be beyond the brokerage's ability to close out positions, because this stock is 1,000% short, and it'll probably be a larger institution like the clearinghouse doing most of the heavy lifting when the time comes, because we'll blow through the money that the banks have, we'll blow through the money the brokerages have, and we'll be stuck with the DTCC probably working directly with the Federal Reserve to just make sure that this stuff all happens. And I wouldn't doubt if the DTCC does all this buying with cash directly from, say, the Federal Reserve or other government entities, and that stuff gets packaged into a long-term bond that's then put on the banks for 20 or 30 years for them to pay off over time. And then, the banks can probably sell those bonds or trade them or whatever. People that hold them can trade them. That's probably the way they do it, rather than just like printing that money and forgetting about it. Okay, I'm at 247. I think that might be it I can do for today. I gotta get out here and I can go talk to my nerd sister. Yeah. So I'll see you guys on Friday. That's all I got today. Feel free to look at me on Twitter. Oh, I forgot. I keep forgetting to announce on this channel. I finally got a PO box. So if you guys want to send me like cool shirts, send away. So I put the PO box in the description. I accept weird shit. So people keep asking, they want to send me shirts, and I will gladly accept those shirts. One more super chat. Drew Soul. Will they prevent buying of GME during MOAS? Could added buying pressure extend the MOAS and thus prolong the sorting of real and synthetic shares? My guess is that when the trading computers are forced to do the buying, the price is going to be so high that retail investors will not be able to participate. They just won't. Retail investors are not going to jump in on GameStop when it's at $10,000 a share, $50,000, $100,000 a share. So all the buying is going to be these big institutions and not the retail buyers. So, they should leave the buy button on while the FOMO happens leading up and not turn it off like they did in January. But there will become a point where the retail investors won't be the ones doing the buying. You may get some weird short sellers like, about at 500,000 sold at $1 million. But I think they'll be few and far between. Okay, everybody. That's it for me today. I will talk to you all on Friday around the same time. Same bat channel, same bat time.